Welcome to the inaugural episode of Graphic Content, the podcast where we talk all things who, why, and what the. Today, my first guest is the best. She she is a recent graduate of the Canadian Academy of Osteopathy. She is also a registered osteopathic manual practitioner. She is the founder of Osteolistica, and she's my sister from the same Mr. Lorena Petrucci.
Hello.
Oh my god, I cannot believe that this is happening.
I know. I feel like a celebrity. Like this is my premiere on YouTube.
Yeah. That I love that that's where the focus is. You're like, it's YouTube. It's not going nowhere else.
I just think about like the video aspect of it, and I'm like, majority of people are not going to be watching it on like Spotify or anything like that. So it's YouTube in my brain. The one time when she was listening to your videos and I walk through the hallway and all I hear is your voice and I'm like, is Gio here? She's
That
like,
I
no, I'm just listening to the videos on YouTube.
that is like hardcore I support my child. Like I will listen to their annoying voice over and over again just to help them get views.
Yeah, girl. I mean, we do it in person all the time, so might as well do it online.
I know, especially if there's like, hey, eventually there's the potential for like monetization. She's like, "Oh, let me
Yeah.
get on board and help you with that."
She's like, "Let's go. We're gonna get your business going."
Mhm. Yeah, I was talking to mom yesterday and just having her run me through like the tech on this.
Yep.
And cuz I was like, "Hey, I need somebody to like help me just, fine tune just so I know what I'm doing when I'm recording." And we were talking and I was like, "Yeah, I want to get you on one eventually." And she's like, "Oh, I don't know what will we talk about?" And then we just kind of like forgot about that and moved into other
An actual
conversation.
conversation, yeah.
Yeah, and then she pauses it. She's like, this could be a podcast. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like,
And you know that people would love that conversation. Like,
I
if it's
know.
mom,
Yeah.
like, every time my friends are over or, like, we have conversations about mom with my friends, they're like, "Oh my god, I love your mom." Like, she's a fan favorite.
Oh, yeah. Especially because people, I find you and I, we have a really an easy time interacting with people. Like, we make friends
Yeah.
easily, blah, blah, blah. And so, like, we get it from both our parents are social. Like, they are very good to chat with. Like, they make friends easily. And I find that if once they meet mom, specifically mom is who we're talking about, I find like, oh, you make way more sense.
Yes. That's usually the case though, like, when you meet people and then you meet their parents, it's like, "Okay, like, now I understand why you are the way you are."
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then sometimes you meet people's parents and you're like, that sucks.
Yeah.
You got the shit end of the deal.
Yeah.
Oh
We
my
won't talk
god.
about that.
I know that we had talked about, or I had talked about wanting to do a podcast. Like it had been a while, and I was like, I really want to. It had been in the back of my head for a while, and when I was putting together in the fall, I was like really starting to think about this in a real way. And
Yep.
I was like, okay, I want to do this. I don't know, I'm gonna make it happen. I've done it. I just want to like start thinking about what that looks like, and writing like who I wanted to talk to, and like in the that was when we were working on your new brand, which we were
Yep.
absolutely going to dive into. Thinking about that, and I was like, I feel like the first person that I want on record to do it with is you, because I'm like, it'll set the tone, it'll be easy. We have
Yes.
we've known each other for a while.
Yeah, my whole fucking life.
And so I was like, I feel like Lorena would be the best first guest. And
Mhm.
then when we were talking about it, like at a later date, you came to me and you're like, I want to be your first guest. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
simpatico.
I think it's just a good introduction for you
Mhm,
and, like, the continuation of this because like you
mhm.
said, it's easy. The conversation's gonna flow. It's not like something
Yeah.
that you're gonna have to like try for, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So definitely I'm super excited to chat with you and like just broadcast our regular conversations that we have all the time.
Yeah. I really wanted to go into this in a way where I'm figuring it out as I go along. And that's the thing that interests me, is to talk to people about what they do, why they do it, and like the what the fucks along the
Yes,
way, like
yeah.
things you come up against. And because this is the first episode of the podcast, it's like a launch, like we're, like I said, inaugural first chapter, whatever.
Yep.
And you're literally 2 weeks into launching your new business, or you just finished your second week of being
Yes.
open. And so to me, I'm like, that's the perfect, it's like the timing could not be better.
Very on brand.
Yeah, very on brand.
Yeah, it's been an interesting 2 weeks, definitely a lot of fun. I'm super tired because it's a different pace.
Yeah.
Like, I'm getting used to the pace of running the business and, like, making sure that I'm fully present when I am with
Hmm.
patients and, like, at the clinic and just being on all the time. It's definitely interesting, like, because 'cause I've been in school pretty much my entire life. Like, I've obviously worked, but it's always been a part-time job. It's never
Hmm.
been my actual career. So the last couple weeks have been an amazing 2 weeks. I'm so, like, proud of myself for doing what I've been doing for the last couple weeks and, like,
Hmm.
the whole journey up until this point. There's definitely been some hiccups and, like, learning experiences, which I know is totally normal.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to, like, navigate that on an emotional level and not getting too caught up in, like, the little things that don't happen perfectly and, like, letting it happen because it's gonna happen, and, like, I have to have that conversation with myself regularly, with you. I talk to mom about it, I
Mm.
talk to papa about it, like,
Yeah.
talking to you guys about it helps so much, but, yeah, overall, it's been, like, amazing. I'm so excited, I feel, like, ready for this next chapter. I've taken a nice break from school, I'm refreshed, I'm ready to
Hmm.
go, and, like, I'm ready to dive into this next part of my life.
I have no doubt in my mind that you're going to achieve, just because you're not somebody who's going to you've never half-assed anything. It's easier for me to say as like a third party to look at you and be like, yeah, you're going to do great. But then when you're in it, like, I can only say so much. And then you're like, I actually just need to like experience and go through
Yes.
it.
Yeah, because
Um,
there's one thing about, like, going through any, like, major life transition, you can have the experience, but also think about it logically, and it's two completely different things. Like,
yeah.
logically, my brain is telling me, like, "It's okay, like, one thing at a time," like, you know how to think through things rationally, but then
Yeah.
you also just have to let yourself go through it and have the experience and, like, just be a human being. You know what I mean? Like, you can't get caught up in all of, like, the little bullshit pieces of it because that's part of the journey, right?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
On the topic of journeys, so let's go back a bit because you didn't originally start out doing osteopathy. Like, how did you get into osteopathy? How did that transition like happen?
So, initially coming out of high school, my intention was to do my undergrad in psychology and then continue with a master's and then eventually get my PhD. But around year 3 at the university, I started, like, questioning what I wanted to do, and I wasn't really resonating with doing another, like, 10 years of school for psychology,
Girl,
and, like, yeah,
could
it's a
never
lot.
be me. Could
I
never be
like,
me.
I love school,
Hmm.
but it was just not something that I was, like, vibing with. I don't know, I had a change of heart, and around that time, I remember I was, like, looking into, like, health psychology and, like,
Hmm.
stuff to do more with, like, the body versus the mind. And then I remember I was seeing this guy at the time, and I went over to his house. We were just hanging out with his friends, and I had met his roommate's girlfriend, and she had just started the program. And we were chatting a little bit. She was telling me about osteopathy and what she did. And at first I was like, oh, like, does it have to do with the bones? Which is, like,
Everyone, yeah, I
everyone
thought that
says
too.
that or asks that at the beginning, right? Because they don't know.
Yeah.
Um, and so she started talking to me about it. And, like, I remember vividly sitting around the table playing Monopoly, thinking to myself, this is what I want to do.
Hmm.
And so I immediately went home and I started researching, like, what is osteopathy, like, the schools, and the school that she was at, which was the school that I ended up going to in
Hmm.
Hamilton. Shout out Canadian Academy of Osteopathy. So, yeah, within a month I was at the school doing a tour,
Hmm.
and mom was like, I remember she's like, "Are you sure? Like, this is a big change.
What the
Like,
fuck are you doing?
yeah, like, what
Yeah.
even is this?" Like,
Yeah.
no one knew about it, right? So,
Hmm.
um yeah, I remember, like, touring the school, and, like, immediately I was like, this is what I want to do. And so I ended up switching my program at the University of Windsor. So I graduated, instead of doing, like, a thesis, and an honors in psychology. I ended up just graduating with a Bachelor of Arts in psychology. So I like shortened my program to only
Yeah.
3 years versus the four. So I finished that year in the spring because it was
Hmm.
around like January or something like that that I had gone to visit the school. And so I finished early. And then for people who don't come from like a health background, they have it's like pre-health for nurses. They
Hmm.
have a course that they offer to students who don't come from like a health background. So I did that and started in the spring, I think, or summer of 2020, and it was online for the first little bit, and then I started the actual program in October of 2020. And here
Okay.
we are 4 year or 4.5 years later now.
You have been hustling though, because like when you started, I remember thinking like, oh, you have another 4 years, like
Yeah.
your post-secondary life is continuing, and then it's over. Like it's like going to your grad in November. I was like, this is wild, and I didn't even go through it. Like I just was like
Yeah.
on the sidelines, just seeing you studying nonstop. Like you didn't have a break for four
No.
years.
No, it's the way that the program is set up. For me, when I was there, I think they've changed it a little bit now. But the program is year round. So I had a 6 month academic semester followed by a 6 month clinical semester. And during that time, I was back and forth from Hamilton. So I didn't have to live in Hamilton because of the way that the program is set up. So you don't actually have to be there full time. You have to be there certain days out of each month. So towards the end, I was there like a lot more because I had to finish all of my clinical hours at the student clinic up there in Hamilton. But honestly, it was a lot, but I
Hmm.
like loved it at the same time. Like it was a love hate type of thing because it was stressful and it was a lot of work, but like it's something if you enjoy studying it and you enjoy learning about it, like there's just so much to learn with the human body too that it's even me now, like I took a break after I finished school in September, but now like starting my practice again, like I'm getting back into the anatomy, I'm getting back into just the readings and stuff, and like this is part of the reason why I chose this is because I know that it's never going to stop. Like you can always
Yeah.
be learning more, and each patient is different. Like every body that walks through your door is going to be it's a different story, right? Like each human tells a story of their life and what has happened to them emotionally, physically,
Hmm.
like all of it. So there's so much to learn still, which I like love. And I'm like, okay, let's go.
That's the thing that I find is unique with you is that people go into, like they go into their vocation, whatever you want to call it,
Yep.
and you could tell they don't care.
Yeah.
Like seeing the amount of, oh, you have this one thing that you're dealing with. Oh, you're having this stomach issue. Wait, let me ask you all these backup questions, and then I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Oh, then what about your stance when you sit down? And then what about that? Like you start to like, and then I'm just like, I just told you I have a stomach ache. Like,
I'm so annoying like that. I know. Like I
but it's
always
good.
am
I think
like,
it's a good thing.
yeah, it is a good thing until we just are trying to have a regular conversation. And I'm like, okay, but what about this? And what about that? And I'm just talking to you and we're on your couch and we're just like, okay.
But no, but like even the other night you were over when my savior.
This old ass.
I was stretching and I hurt myself.
Yeah, literally went into full spasm. And
It was so
then
bad.
I come out of your room and I'm just like, "What happened?" He's, like, hunched over the island. I'm like,
Ooh.
"Well, it's a good thing that an
Yeah,
osteopath is here to help
a
you."
hundred. 100%. I
Yeah.
was like, I was cooking dinner, and then all of a sudden, I just wanted to stretch my back. I did a forward bend, and then I stood up, and I don't know what happened, but it was awful. And I swear, because you were there in the room, I whatever those your treatment that you did, like your little magic witch hands, like fixed me. Like that night, obviously, like I wasn't great, but the
The next day.
normally, because that happens to me a few times a year, and then
Mhm.
once again, going back to what we were talking about, you like to ask, okay, like you're this happens multiple times a year, like you need to go get this looked at on like a more
Yeah,
serious
get some
level.
imaging done just in case.
Yes, but the fact that you were instantly able to do a treatment on me, the timing of it is serendipitous. Just the fact that like not that like, oh, we have content to talk about because we could literally talk about anything, but the timing of it happening a few days ago to now,
Yeah.
where normally, because that does happen to me, like I'll move funny, and then I think it is a spinal issue, which I'm going to get it looked at. But the fact that you were immediately able to do a treatment on me, and then now, what was that, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so it's a couple days, 3 days, I it feels like it hasn't even happened, whereas in the
Yeah.
past something would happen and I would be like basically immobile for multiple days at a time. Like I wouldn't, if waking up this morning, it was like it had never happened, which
Yeah.
to me is just another thing to like blow smoke to the osteopath
Yes, go
community.
ahead.
But legitimately, you all have, there's like a wonderful witchcraft, and like, and I mean that in like the best way, like in a very positive way, where you're
Yeah.
able to fix people by really not like, you're not cracking them in half.
No. It's not even that, like, if you really understand what we're doing, we're just facilitating your body's own healing processes.
Hmm.
We can't take credit for that. Like, obviously, we apply a treatment, we apply manual therapy, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's just the body doing its own job. It just needs a little help sometimes. So, really, I didn't do much with you the other night when that happened. My whole intention with that is, okay, you went into spasm, your muscles are all jacked up. I'm just kind of shutting that down, like shutting that, like inhibiting it
Yeah.
essentially, and calming down the nervous system so that way it doesn't stay as turned on, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
I don't know, like in layman's terms, how to,
Activated.
yeah, like turning it off essentially.
Yeah.
So you're able to kind of heal a little bit better and not be in that fight or flight mode as much.
But what has the shift been from, okay, I'm like practicing under school, and then okay, now I'm actually like more, I feel more legitimate in the world.
I don't even know if I feel more legitimate. I feel kind of the same if I'm going to be real.
Hmm.
Just because you finish school doesn't mean like the way that you feel about yourself as a practitioner changes just yet. I haven't been in it long enough to be confident enough to say like, okay, I got it, like 100%.
Of
Like
course.
it's a learning experience every single day that you walk in. And some days you have really good outcome and then some days you're like, okay, that wasn't that great. But then at the same time, those people that come back to you a week later who you thought you didn't give a good treatment to, they're like, "Oh, I'm feeling better." You know what I mean? So it's kind of
Hmm.
like it's a learning experience every single day that you walk into the clinic. And over time, and our profs tell us like it's going to take time, obviously, like with anything else that's worthwhile. It takes time and effort and a lot of work, but over the years your hands start to wake up. So we assess as osteopaths, osteopathic manual practitioners, we assess through palpation. Well, and that's one of the ways that we assess. There's other aspects of it as well,
What
but
is that?
palpation is essentially using your hands to assess the tissues, the way that they're moving, if there's any asymmetries or restrictions or tissue texture that can play a role in like what you're finding in the body, if there's fluid accumulation in the tissues, if the tissue feels like more ropey versus like congested, like
That's crazy.
yeah, there's aspects of assessment through palpation that you have to learn how to pick up on, and that only comes with practice. So talk to me in a year and I'm sure I'll have a different answer for you.
Yeah.
But through the last few years, like we've been practicing doing clinical work through school. So the more that you do it and the more volume of patients that you have, the better that you get at it. And that's like with any other type of practice, it takes practice, right?
Hmm.
It's in the name. So yeah, as of right now, I'm doing my best to kind of get back to basics in the sense of I'm not trying to be fancy on the table. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to do all these crazy moves. I'm just working to really think about what I'm finding and how to address it in the most effective way.
If someone was to come to you, let's say they didn't give you any background, they're and, like, I know you obviously want people to tell you, like, what do you do for work, et cetera, so you have a better understanding. If
Yep.
someone was to lay on the table and you were starting to assess them or do a treatment, like, would you be able to tell how they live?
In a way, I guess, yeah. So you're looking at like patterns of movement essentially and the way that the body prefers to move and the
Mhm.
way that the body is restricted. So it's not necessarily that I'm able to tell like what they do for a living, but you can kind of see how they're using their body every day,
Mhm.
right? And through those patterns, you're able to make those assumptions. But usually, like people come in and like I ask them like a whole list of questions to see what's going on, what do they do, what's their background, any injuries or anything like that, even that they don't really think of. Like people don't think that, okay, I fell when I was 5 years old. Like they don't think that that plays a role in their body today. But I need to know these things, right?
Do you ever have people who, because I know we had talked about this, but where they come in and they're like, oh yeah, like I'm generally fine, and then you start to like dig and they're like, oh wait, there's way more information that they're leaving out.
Yes, and sometimes I don't even think people are aware of what's going on in their body because for whatever reason, sometimes it's just like a coping mechanism or they've never actually taken the time to become in tune with their bodies.
Hmm.
Um, but sometimes they don't even know what's going on themselves. And then you start to talk to them and ask them questions and they're like, "Oh, okay, yeah." Like and then they start to think about it. So I think osteopathy is really cool too in that way because not only are you, you're helping the body in so many different ways, but also you're helping the individual connect with their body. Like during treatment I have people like just take the time to even breathe through a
Yeah.
movement or engage a certain aspect of their body, like let's say their hip in a certain movement. I'm asking them to move it a certain way, and they've never actually thought about consciously engaging that part of their body. So it's really cool because it's also a relationship that helps the patient form a better connection with themselves, which I think is really cool.
So if anyone is listening and you were to like give them like a quick tip on how to like actually engage, or not necessarily engage, but connect with their physicality, because I know a lot of people don't, they can't, it's hard. Like what's like a quick, like something that you can like like a self-assessment to see like, okay, like let me see if I'm like in my own body.
Honestly, I think that that's going to be different for everybody because the way that you connect with yourself is going to be different than the way that I connect with myself, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, for me, I can say what works for me. It's going to sound a little weird, but sometimes if I'm feeling disconnected from myself, what I like to do is focus on my breathing, focus on the feeling of the air entering and exiting my nose and like my
Hmm.
nasal passages.
Yeah.
Um, Another thing that I love to do, which I only started doing probably in the last like year or so, is shaking. And I know that sounds so weird, but if I ever feel overwhelmed or anxious or just feeling like disconnected, not myself, I'll just shake my body in whatever way it feels good to shake. Like if it just looks super weird, I'll do it. I don't care. I'm by
Hmm.
myself when I do it anyway. But for me, doing that helps a lot just to kind of regulate the nervous system and like calm down a little bit. And in reality, you're just shaking off excess energy. That's why people love to go to the gym. That's why they love to go on runs and do all these types of movements. So that's why I'm saying like it's different for everybody. Yeah, that's kind of what I like to do as of recent. I also like dancing is a huge thing for me too. I love to dance.
A couple weeks ago, a friend of mine, Warren, he was telling me about how Tony Robbins was doing like a free 3 day webinar series, whatever.
Yeah, like a class.
Yeah, like just because he's a motivational speaker, that's his whole platform. And so I tuned in. I was like, it's free. Why would I not? Like, I'll play it in the background of work, whatever. I ended up actually listening to a good portion of it on the first day. The first day, he had a whole section where it was like, okay, he's like, I've done enough talking. Like, everybody get up. And you're gonna and he said like you're gonna shake off your energy, and everyone's like, I'm like looking at all like the zooms. People who paid could like be on screen, which I
Yeah.
could never be me. I'm like in a hoodie looking like a gremlin,
Yeah.
and people are getting up, and like he's like, okay, now you're gonna like yell out and blah blah blah. And I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna to f- with Tyler because he's in the other room. I'm gonna do it, and I'm like, "Rah!" Like I just did the I
You sound
just
like a pterodactyl.
my T-Rex energy.
Yeah.
And he like pops his head. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Oh, I'm Tony Robbins told me to shake my body and yell." Like, but like honestly, because it's about it's that stagnant energy, right? And he's globally known, so
Yeah.
you're not weird if he's this like person who's got a huge following and who's telling people to do that.
I think it's so simple, right? Like sometimes we want to overcomplicate it and you need to get this
Totally.
vibration plate and you need to like do all these little things and I'm just like honestly sometimes you just need to like get back to basics. Once again,
Hmm.
get back to basics. I learned about doing that through this like it was like a cacao ceremony that I went to with my friend Olivia and we went to one of the yoga studios here in Windsor and we did that together. So essentially, I didn't really understand what I was getting myself into when we first got there. She just invited me and I was like, sure, like I'm down.
Yeah.
So it was like a cacao ceremony, but it was also like a somatic dance
Hmm.
event. So it was all women, and we went there and we did we drank the cacao. It was from New Zealand, I think, and it was super cool. The way that she explained how it worked in the body, I was
Kiwi
like,
cacao.
kiwi cacao. Yes, exactly. It was super cool. Like the way that she explained some of the compounds in it, like helped to open up the heart, and like she just explained the whole science behind it. And then we got into like the somatic dance part of the event, and it was literally an hour of just doing the most, but like in the best way possible, just moving our bodies in whatever way felt good to us,
Hmm.
and just connecting and like shaking it off. And I had my eyes closed for most of the time because I didn't want to be looking around thinking like
Yeah.
all these people are looking at me. But the next day, like that night and the next day, I felt like 50 pounds lighter. I swear to God, it felt like I had just released like so much pent up shit that I had
Hmm.
carried on for God knows how long, right? So that's where I learned about it, and then ever since I've just been doing it. And honestly, it feels so good. I'm like, let's shake it off, you know?
I will say the idea of, and I know this just from firsthand experience back in the day with like Love It Yoga in Amherstburg.
Mhm.
I was like, I think one of like the very few men that actually went to this studio,
Yep.
especially in that environment where, let's say it's like group meditation or yoga. And like, I'm not like hardcore with that. Like, I'm not like a yogi person, like 100%, but I do like dip my toes into that world every so often.
Yep.
And I find that when I'm in a room where it's like mostly women, like female energy, like I feel much more at ease to tap it, like lean into the more vulnerable sides of things. And
Yep.
so I can only imagine when it's like only women, you're like, okay, we are in a bubble of
Safe
like ours.
space.
Exactly.
Yeah. And obviously, like, there are men that you can feel that way with. It's just
Hmm.
a different
Of
energy, I
course.
think. Women are just more like nurturing, generally speaking, and more caring and like understanding of different ways of life, if that makes sense. So, like, doing stuff like this,
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. And I'm sure there are like women out there who are super against it. And there's, it doesn't matter about.
The world has all types.
Yes, exactly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I definitely agree with that. Women are It's funny, I used to not feel as connected to women, like, when I was younger in my, like, teen years and, like, around, like, 2021, I felt disconnected from, I think, my own femininity, and
Hmm.
so I was operating out of a different state, maybe more in tune with, like, not my masculine side, but just I wasn't as connected with myself in the way that I am now.
Yeah.
And now over the years, I've come to like have so many more female friendships and like really appreciate women and love the elements that they bring to life because I resonate so much more with them now. So it's really cool to see that when you are really young and you don't have that, and then you grow up and you start to change the way that you operate, and so you attract more of that in your life. And I think honestly, it started, like, maybe a few years ago, but especially in the last year, like, I've been working at Pure Nature, which is, like, a local supplement and health food store here in Windsor, and a lot of the women that work there are just so amazing, and so I've really been able to connect with women in a different way since working there, and I think that's helped me with my own relationship with femininity and my own, like, feminine side, so yeah, it's really cool to see.
It dovetails nicely into how you approach your practice as you have gotten older. Like, I mean, I've known you since you were born. For anyone who doesn't know us, like our age difference is almost 11 years.
Yeah.
And so I have like a bit of a gap on you when it comes to like being able to see you from being a baby, literally, to becoming now mid 20s, a woman,
Yep.
and to see that evolution of kooky little
Yeah,
character,
crazy.
but both of us were in our own
Yeah, I
ways
know. Mom and I were talking about that yesterday, how we were, like,
divas.
sassy
Yeah.
kids, yeah.
Yeah, and like even and as adults, like there are similarities, but we're obviously very different.
Yeah.
that part of you is still there, like that fun, like likes to go to like music festivals, like that
Yes, I
person
love
is
it.
there, but there's the contrasting side where it's that like the healing. Now you're at a point now where you are applying it to a real career. You are able to kind of like pull all the things out of your experience in life and bring it into a practice where you're actually like helping people heal. I've been involved in the building of your brand, your business in the early stages, and now that it's like it's still going to grow and evolve, but it's fun to see the process of like
Yes.
little human becoming, investing so much time into this career, your education to
Yep. The
step
practice for sure.
into your career, and now you're like able to start applying it. Did you always think that you were going to be like self-employed, like you're like, okay, I'm doing this for me, or did you think like I'm going to join a team? Like what was your approach?
For the time being, I am very happy to be able to work for myself. I think being raised by entrepreneurs and being around you as well, like you being an entrepreneur and seeing all these adults around me who they work for themselves, like, yeah, it's a lot more responsibility in a different way,
Hmm.
but it's also so much more rewarding and there's so much more freedom and
Yeah.
control that you can have over your career life. And so to me, it was kind of a no brainer. Like, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to be my own boss. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't like the idea of having to show up at work every day at 9 a.m. and work for somebody else and make them money. Like, no. I want to do what I want to do on my terms. And if that means I have to work my ass off, I'm going to do it because I'm doing it for myself. Yeah, it's kind of always been in my like plans to work for myself, I guess, but I didn't go into it with that intention.
Yeah.
But now it is the outcome, so I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
talk to us a little bit about the name of the business. Like I know the story, but I want
Yeah.
you to like discuss it a little bit.
So it's so funny because at the beginning, when we had first talked about it, so I'll tell you guys the story. Me and Gio went to one of the cafes here in Amherstburg, and we were talking about like color palettes and just like the beginnings of the branding process and what it was going to look like later down the road. And so we had been chatting, and initially I'd chosen Thrive Osteopathy, and then I went online and it was like already used like 3 or 4 times, and I was like, this is
In Windsor
not.
alone.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any in Windsor. I think there might be one. So I was like, you know what, like this, I don't want to do this. It's cute and stuff, but it's not resonating with me. And so all the main words though that are associated with osteopathy is like flow, holistic,
Hmm.
wellness, like I being the that I am. I went on Google Translate and I started translating these words into Italian. And one of the words that I translated was holistic, and it ended up being olistica in Italian. And so obviously I'm not going to say osteolistica. But Gio and I were chatting and he's like, "Why don't you call it osteolistica?" Because it was the combination of osteopathy and the word olistica in Italian. So I was like, "Oh my god, okay, I love this." But at the same time I was like, "It's so extra, it's so
Yeah.
dramatic, like people are not going to know what it means." But it stuck with me. And so I remember being at work one day and I was talking to one of the girls and she was like, "Girl, like I love this name. I don't know why you're second guessing it. I think it's so fun. It's so cute." And that whole conversation just helped me make a decision in it and saying like, if this girl thinks it's fun and it's cute, like why can't I just like own it and be confident about it?
Yeah.
So I stopped overthinking and I was like, fuck it, like this is going to be the name of my business. And here we are, Osteolistica.
Listen, I'm always gonna go for the thing that's like unique. To anyone who doesn't know, I work as a brand designer. I work in branding primarily. That's like
Yes.
my bread and butter. And so for me, I you always want something that is gonna be unique. My point being is that when we were thinking about it, it just like popped in my head because you
Yeah.
had said you're like, I want to tie into my Italian, like what I do, and I'm like, something you just need one word. What are you gonna do that's gonna stand out? And so, and I didn't overthink it. Like that's always when you know those things that just pop into your head. Because when
Yeah.
you start to, and you know me,
Yeah, girl, I'm cut from the
when
same
you
cloth.
when you overanalyze, and
Yes.
you're like, you're being an idiot, like you're getting
Yeah.
in your own way. And so I'm like, this is the one. And you're like,
Yeah.
but that's so extra. I'm like, yeah, that's why it's perfect.
And it's
And not,
so me, like, it's so extra, the little
hmm
bit of drama, the little bit of Italian, like, it's reflective of my heritage, and, like, I think about also all the work that mom and papa have done to get us here, and, like, so it's like a reflection of all of that as well for me.
hmm
So it means a lot, and I'm super, like, happy that I chose that one.
oh, it's
Yeah, I love
perfect.
it.
And once again, like, not to like make it about me, but
Yeah, but always making it about you.
but I just like, I honestly, on some level, like, I really do love the fact that I'm part of it. Like, and obviously I created your brand and we worked on it together, and your website,
Yeah.
etc. But like the fact that I have been able to be part of this as
Yes.
well, like, it makes sense because it's like the family's involved, like it's like it's a holistic
Yeah.
approach to all of it, right? Like it really does embody
Yes.
so much of your values as a person.
Mhm. I love it. I'm super happy with it. And now people ask me, they're like, "How do you say it?" Or like, it's like with
Like,
my name, like I used to introduce myself as a Lorena, and
oh, I hated that.
I'm so done with that. Now I'm like, my name is Lorena. If you can't say it properly, that's fine. You can say it Lorena, but I'm not going to call myself that anymore, because when you're young, like it's different. You don't have like
hmm
the confidence to be like, this is who I am. But now I'm like, no, fuck that. My name is Lorena. Like, this
yeah,
is me. Just like with Osteolistica, like, girl, that's me.
yeah. Like, to me, I don't want to like dilute myself for others. Like,
Mhm.
I did for years, and like it just didn't really work out for me in those times.
It
But
doesn't get you anywhere at
no,
the end
you
of the
have,
day, right?
yeah. I don't know. I'm at a point now where I'm like, I don't care. I know I'm extra. Like,
Yeah, girl, we know.
I jokingly, I'm a Sasquatch.
Mhm.
Emphasis on the sass. And
Yes.
so to me, I'm not trying to connect with everybody, because to me that's like, not, what does that do? Nothing.
If you try to connect with everybody, you end up connecting with nobody.
Even how I write, like on my website, or that's why I'm like, what's your tone? How are you writing? What is,
Yep.
you want it to sound like you, especially as a solo entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like, you're one person. It's not like you're like a conglomerate or a team. So you want to make sure your website, how you write on your posts, is like, it sounds like you. So
Yes.
same with me, where I'm looking at my stuff and I was like, I sound so robotic. Like, I'm like trying to be so uber professional, and I'm like, this just isn't me, which is
Yeah.
also why, like, a reason why I wanted to do this. I don't want to be like, this is how you brand. It's like, everyone does it differently, and there's so many solutions to the same problem. And so why are we trying to say there's only one way?
Yes. That's totally
Not
fair.
that, anyway, you know what I'm trying to say.
No, I know exactly what you're saying. And I think if you operate from a place of authenticity, like people resonate with that, even if they don't like fully understand you or connect with you in the way that's like, okay, we're the same.
Yeah.
They still can acknowledge that you're being authentic and genuine, and they recognize that, and then they honor that, and like people appreciate that, because I think in today's world everybody's, it's all very
hmm
superficial, and like
Yes.
nobody knows how to connect anymore. Actually, no, that's a lie. I'm gonna take that back, because I find generally that's the case, but not with everybody, because I've found a lot of amazing people that I've connected with over the years, so I can't say that wholeheartedly. But yeah, I think when you operate from a place of being genuine and just yourself, people see that and they're like, "Oh, I love that. I want to get to know him. I want to be friends with him and just like connect." That's what it's all about at the end of the day, right? And I'm not even trying to sound cheesy when I say that,
Oh.
but literally my best moments in my life is just having good conversation with people
hmm
and connecting with other humans. Like that is what it is all about.
I cannot fake the funk. Like, I can only be me. When you're, especially in new environments where you're talking to people and people have their guard up, like, that's normal, which I think I'm
Yep.
the opposite, which is not good as well, because I am too open, I think, energetically at times.
Yeah, yes and no. Maybe more so before, but I think you've learned over the years.
Yeah, you have to put those, like, even a thin veil of a wall has to be up.
There's
But
boundaries that you need to have with
yes.
people. Yeah, for sure. I feel like my experience, even working at like Pure Nature, when I am just authentic and I am honest with people that come in the door, they are so much more comfortable in sharing their stories and their
hmm
experiences with their health, and like how they got to this point in their life and what worked for them and what didn't. And so I definitely see that in like my work life as well. And I think that can translate to any part of your life for sure.
So I want to go back a little bit and talk about the experience of working on the brand. Like, I want to hear from you. What has your experience been in creating? Because it's like you're building it from the ground up. Not only with you're starting new,
Yep.
you just launched a business. Like, how has that been to help to be part of the branding process? Where you're like, okay, I'm also creating a face for my business beyond just my practice.
Well, having you has helped so much. I feel like I've just been able to do all the fun stuff, like pick what colors I want and pick the fonts that I like, and like doing the mood board was super fun. And then I've honestly, like, I've kind of left the rest up to you, like given you that creative freedom to just do your thing, and I am so happy with the outcome. And I keep hearing like people are like, "Oh my god, I love your website. I love your branding. It looks so good." I'm like, "Yeah, that's my brother. This is his ad, and this is his like contact info if you need any
Yes,
branding." I'm
I
like
love it.
plugging you into my own business. But yeah, it's been fun. I think that it's reflective of what I wanted it to be from the beginning, which is
Hmm.
like, especially with the colors and like the textures and the prints that we've used so far, it's grounded. There's a little bit of femininity in there, but not too much. And it just feels very reflective of me and where I'm at in my life and the phase that I'm in.
A
So,
100%.
yeah, I've really had a fun time. I mean, we really did this quickly. Like we started it what in we started talking about it in November. It is
Hmm.
now February and I'm already up and running. So, we did it very quickly.
Yeah, we fast tracked it.
Yeah.
I just want to say though, I've been doing this for, in branding specifically, I think 7 years, 8 years.
Okay.
I always ask clients, going into it, like we'll do like a discovery call, like
Yeah.
discuss the whole, like, okay, what do you want? Who are you? What are your goals? Like, let me understand you. It's like a first date. I'm trying to get to know you. Obviously, we have history. We're
Yeah.
siblings. So I like, it was much, we could have like, we kind of skipped that part because we didn't need to do it. When I asked you, I was like, just start collecting some images for a mood board based on what you like. This is the first time ever in the years I've been doing this with I don't even know how many clients I've worked on with, specifically with branding, that I 100% used every single image that you provided me for the mood board. Usually I get stuff from clients and I'm like, I get where they're going with this, but I'm going to like overhaul it and do my own
Yeah.
version. This was something where I'm like, oh, shit, 99% of these images, I think 100%, I used everything you provided. This girl understands what she's looking for.
I
And to me,
understood the assignment.
you understood the assignment. And I was like, this is the first time ever that I have not had to like look up something and add it in. I was like, this is amazing. Already it started off like so good.
I have a little bit of a background in art, so like for me, it was easy to pinpoint what pictures I wanted to use, how to balance them, like colors and everything. So I'm happy when you told me that. I was like, yes, like pat
Like
on my back.
100%. I was like, this, I was like,
Yeah.
I even said to Tyler, I'm like, girl, this is like, I've never had this in my life. And I'm not even, I don't blow smoke. I'm not going to like say anything that I don't mean just to make you feel good. Like
Yeah.
I was like, this is amazing. I actually don't need to do any additional research, but I'm super happy with it. I'm just so excited for you. And having been self-employed now for I'm going, and next month will be 8 years for me.
Okay, damn.
Just to see you at the early stages, you're at a point now where you're so primed for what's to come. Like it's like I can see it for you, but like where do you see where do you see it going? I know it's like such a big open-ended question, but I'm genuinely curious.
I like, you know how you talk about how you see it for me? I see it the same way. Like
Hmm.
I can envision where I'm going to be in the future. I don't know the timeline exactly of how it's
No.
going to pan out cuz that's not up to me. But I definitely see myself working with Mabel. So right now, for those of you who don't know, I'm working out of Chung's Wellness in Windsor. I don't 100% know where I'm going to be by the time I'm like 30, 32, 33. What I would love to do eventually is have my own wellness space and offer like a multitude of services. So, still doing osteopathy, but part of me, like, I still feel super connected to like nutrition and
Yeah.
supplementation. And I know that it's not 100% osteopathic because within osteopathy and like the principles of osteopathy, we believe that given a good diet, like, I mean, I guess it is osteopathic in a way because it does coincide with what we're taught
Yeah, for sure.
and nourishing our bodies properly. Combining those two together is like my end goal. So if I can provide a service that I'm creating kind of like a just helping people on their path to better health through osteopathy, but also nutrition, supplementation if they need it, and just helping to guide them and like educate people. I think education is so important and understanding how the body works because we all have one. So why don't we know how it works, right?
Hmm.
Like why don't we take the time to actually understand what's going on inside of us? And if we can't do that in our own personal lives, have practitioners who are able to do that. So, yeah, that's my goal long term. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do it, but I know that the opportunities will arise for me and I'll get there one way or another. I think part of that too is, like I said, the education aspect of it. I think that down the road, I would love to do something where I'm able to talk to people about,
I was gonna say, I'm like, I
yeah,
can totally see that for you.
yeah. I think helping people understand through whether it's like lectures or conversations or hosting like
A TED talk.
kind of like a TED talk in a way, like just presentations where like you go in
Seminar.
with, yeah, like a seminar, exactly, where you go in and you talk about a specific topic, whether it's like a specific way of eating or like supporting your body in one way or another, whatever it is. I think I can totally see myself doing that down the road and just being like an educator to a certain degree.
I see that for you.
Yeah.
Even just the way, like we said earlier, where you're just talking about explaining. And I know for you, the way you approach it is where you're like, you're running through it in your head by talking about it,
Yeah.
where it's almost like you're testing yourself.
Yes.
I am not a like, I'm a designer, I'm a creative like that. Like, not to say like I want to limit myself by saying that out loud, but
Yep.
it's true. Like, I just don't have that background. And so even you explaining stuff to me, I'm like, oh, okay, like I'm understanding more, and I'm like, I'm starting to think about things, which to me is indicative of a potential of that educational aspect when it comes to like a broader or like a larger platform. I can
Yep.
see that for you.
Yeah, 100%. I've
Hmm.
been told that too. It's funny, like a couple people in the past have been like, I can see you like talking to people and like
Yeah.
educating people. And exactly what you're doing with the podcast, right? Like you're trying to create a career avenue through having conversation. And
Hmm.
it's the same thing for me that I would like to do in the future, but doing something or talking about something that I like resonate with so much, which is health and wellness, right?
Hmm.
So it's kind of the same, but same, but different, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And like, why not go for it? To me,
Yeah.
I'm at a point now where I'm like, just do the thing. If you want to do it,
Yes.
just do it, right?
Stop sabotaging yourself. Stop getting in your own way. Because at the end of the day, you get in your own way. Not you specifically.
Yeah. Well, I
Um,
do, but
we all do. We all do in one way or another. And
yeah.
so at the end of the day, it's like, what do you want for yourself? And
Hmm.
number one is believing that you deserve it. Number two is actually being able to see it. So, like, having that vision, like being able to close your eyes and envision yourself in the future and like even if it's this crazy idea that you have or this thing that you think is not attainable. Like if you believe that it's not attainable, it's never going to be attainable. But if you
Hmm.
believe that you can get there and that you have that image in your mind's eye, you will fucking do it. You just have to put
Yeah.
in the work, right?
Yeah.
Like no one and then at the end of the day, no one can take that from you. You know that you put in the work, you did it and you can reap the reward of like owning it and being confident that you went through this whole journey obviously with the support of like friends and family. You can't fully do things
Of
alone
course.
because it just doesn't work that way, unfortunately. Getting to that point and then you can look back and be like, like I did this, no one else can take it from me. Yeah.
100%. So we are nearing the end. I cannot believe it's been an hour. That's actually
Oh
crazy.
my god, that
Like,
is
that
wild.
flew by. But so as like I said, I've been thinking about doing the podcast for a while. I've been thinking about putting this whole shindig together, and so I really was thinking about, okay, structure and framework. And I like the idea of these other podcasts that have like a recurring question at the end of
Okay.
every episode. And so I was thinking about like what makes sense. I want like for me, and you chat GPT things, but I was like, I don't. There's these some of these are so like random, right? And I'm trying to think of like something that makes sense for me. So one thing I was thinking of that I want to ask everybody is what is the most on brand thing you've ever done? This can be like personal, professional, like anything that makes sense for who you are as a person.
Honestly, I think everything I do is on brand because I'm doing it.
I love that answer.
Like, everything I do is on brand because I'm the one that's doing it.
Yes.
But, like, first thing that comes to mind is my whole Osteolistica brand, like, the
Hmm.
whole name in and of itself, like, where I'm working is very on brand for me.
Yes.
If you guys know Chung's Wellness, you know it's very me, like, the aesthetic, the vibe, Mabel's approach to health and wellness, it suits me very, very well, and, yeah, just I think my whole brand, so, like, Osteolistica, the name, having, like, Italian roots in the name, also reflective of osteopathy, which
Hmm.
obviously you guys know, like, I love so much.
Yeah.
And doing all of my branding with you, my brother, who, if you guys know me personally, you know that my family is so, so important,
Hmm.
especially my brothers. So having you on my team to create this whole brand is very on brand for me.
Yes.
So yeah, that's like kind of the first thing that came to my mind.
I love it. Honestly, it's my brand is on brand. I'm obsessed.
My life is on brand.
It makes sense for a podcast hosted by me.
Yes, for sure.
So, for anyone who's wondering, where can people find you?
You guys can find me on Instagram and on Facebook. My at is Osteolistica, so osteo and then Listica. If you guys have any questions, if you're ever interested in just having a chat about osteopathy, like I always offer like a 15-minute call with patients who are unsure if osteopathy is the right path for them. So if you guys are ever curious about it and just want to get to know more, just shoot me a DM or send me an email. All of my contact info is on my Facebook and my Instagram. If there's anybody out there who resonates with this, hey, what's up?
I'll also make sure to put your website, osteolistica.com, in the show notes so people can
Yes,
click directly to your website.
thank you.
Oh my God.
Your first podcast, how do you feel?
I
Was
know.
it
Well,
amazing?
yeah, I mean, that's why I wanted you to do it because I was like, I need to get in the rhythm of it with someone that like I talk to almost every day, so it
Yes.
was easier. This is the part I hate now, where I'm like, I gotta like plug my. So to anyone who's wondering, I hate this part. Follow graphic content.
Okay. Let's start from the top. Just take a breath. You're
Mhm,
good. This is your podcast. You have to take
mhm.
control.
Okay. To anyone who wants to connect with me, you can check out graphic content on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can subscribe, leave a review, share with your friends. I'm brand new out into the world, so I would very much appreciate that. And for anyone who is potentially looking to connect with me over a chat about creative or design, you can check me out at geographic.com. All of that information is in the show notes as well.
Yay. See, that wasn't so hard.
I just want to say bye.
Bye.
Bye.